Sabrina Carpenter is the latest pop star to be labelled as a bad role model, as being inappropriate for young girls. But she's a 25-year-old woman making pop music which isn't meant for children. Wait, do you hear that? The echoes of the past are ringing in my ears, and it's not just my tinnitus.
Two things were missing from Britney Spears' performance: live vocals and a pole.
We feel Britney's performance was outrageous, distasteful, and demeaning to all women. We also feel it was an extremely poor example for the millions of preteen girls that idolize her.
It feels like we've been here before. Now I have to be very careful with this video because we're on about naughty things, and YouTube absolutely hates that. So, if you're one of my patrons, not only have you seen this video already because you always get my videos early, but my patrons also have access to the extended and uncensored version of this video, the director's cut, if you will. But if you're watching this on YouTube, you're getting the censored version. Don't get angry with me, get angry with YouTube.
When I'm in the bedroom looking sexy, he's having a ball, he called me messy.
They're such a bad role model. What's funniest to me is the parents that are complaining that Sabrina Carpenter is too sexy for their children to listen to are Gen X and Millennials. Millennials, we were raised with this.
Get it on, keep a beat and move in my body, yeah, slow.
Or do you not remember that? Oh, you're Gen X? I can go back further to the 80s and early 90s where this stuff was popular.
Get up. 23 positions in a one-night stand.
And we cannot forget the icon. Whoops, iconic homage doesn't count. I meant this icon. And if you've never heard of the song Sugar Walls like I hadn't, here's all of the lyrics for you on the screen now. Just like I was singing along on the beach when I was a kid, and all of these other songs which I had no idea about, like Boom Boom Boom, I Want You in My Room. I didn't know. But you don't understand, Bryony, things weren't as explicit back then. Excuse me? Boundaries have been pushed by pop music for generations at this point. Do you not remember Elvis the Pelvis? He caused heaps of complaints when he was on TV because people were so concerned about his hips' effect on women. I would be worried about his effect on women in other ways in real life, but hey, we've got different issues with him, I suppose. One judge in Jacksonville, Florida, threatened him with jail time if he did not restrain himself at the gigs he was performing in the state later on that year. This was in 1956, and this was for the benefit of girls who were watching him because, you know, they could be corrupted, they could be affected by his sheer power of his hips. And funnily enough, it's conservative people who love him the most. The same sorts of people that would be up in arms about someone like Sabrina Carpenter today. Huh. Bit weird to try and reconcile that, isn't it? I'm the first person to come to people's defense, especially girls, when they are objectified against their will, which sadly is something which happens all of the time, as I've talked about in many of my videos. But that's not what's happening with Sabrina. She is expressing and owning her sexuality, two very different things. If you don't know about Sabrina's past, she's a Disney kid. Millennials, I know that we're all having tabloid flashbacks right now. I'll link a couple of videos for you down below which dive more into her lore. She started acting when she was very young, and she went on to a Miley Cyrus singing competition and got 3rd place when she was how old? 10 years old. She was on the TV show Girl Meets World from 2014 to 2017, and she signed a 5-record deal with Disney. 5 records! That basically solidified her into Disney's clutches for all of her teenagehood to early adulthood, however long it takes you to actually fulfill that 5-record contract. Ridiculous, in my mind, to put a young teenager through that. In January of 2021, she signed with Island Records, just a few months before she turned 22. And the vibes were instantly different to Disney days. There was a song called Skinny Dipping, for goodness sake. And then in 2023, she made a Christmas album, which I'm keeping my eyes on. I think she may be coming for Mariah's crown. And then in 2024, she came out with her new album, Short and Sweet, which I'm sure you know at least one song from. Perhaps it's this one.
So you can't sleep, baby, I know that's that me espresso.
An inescapable song of the summer, at least in the Northern Hemisphere. Basically, she's a tenured star of the acting and singing world, and she gained even more fame when she went on tour with who? Taylor Swift. And now most people recognize her for her style evolution, which I'm going to recommend this video from Art at Midnight. I really do love their channel. For her very catchy songs and her cheekiness. I did try to recreate Sabrina's hair, but I don't have hot tools. This is foam rollers, and there is no way that I was going to cut a fringe. I've had a fringe in the past, and it is not good on me. Sabrina isn't the first to get criticised so heavily. She spoke to Time magazine earlier this month. Her brand is she's short, she's funny, and she's horny. It's specific enough to feel authentic, but also general enough to capture an ever-broadening audience. And she's not afraid to make a joke about herself. If you want to call me a Polly Pocket, a Bratz doll, I don't care. You'll meet me and then you'll be like, damn, she talks a lot more than dolls do. The interviewer says, with all the lingerie and innuendos in mind, I asked Carpenter if, a generation later, she has been spared the vilification that artists like Britney Spears and Christina Aguilera suffered for daring to incorporate their sexuality into their work. No, I definitely get that as well. Someone told me this, whenever I get upset or feel like I'm the only one getting criticized for something other people are able to do seemingly so freely, I'm the one that's seeing all the negative shit about myself. My friends don't see that. Artists like Madonna, Aguilera, Spears, Beyonce, and Rihanna help pave the way, Carpenter says. But you still get the occasional mother that has a strong opinion on how you should be dressing. And to that I just say, don't come to the show, and that's okay. It's unfortunate that it's ever been something to criticize, because truthfully, the scariest thing in the world is getting up on stage in front of that many people and having to perform as if it's nothing. If the one thing that helps you do that is the way you feel comfortable dressing, then that's what you've got to do. Like, my god, people were criticizing the Spice Girls when I was growing up. Yeah, the Spice Girls, all about girl power, saying how they were tarty. That was definitely some messaging in my house around Ginger Spice. Everything that they did was torn apart too. They kept on being cool, bad role models, everything. And we're in 2024. That started in 1996.
If you seek Amy.
These Disney degenerates. Won't anybody think of the children? Every child star who has worked for Disney has come under scrutiny. Actually, scratch that. Every girl child star who has worked for Disney has come under harsh scrutiny. Disney's become synonymous for good, clean fun. It's like people forget that they had a song literally about how a priest wanted to sleep with a woman so badly that he was willing to kill her.
This burning desire.
Amazing song, by the way. One of Disney's best songs. Fight me. But just like Esmeralda was being blamed for the villain's vile actions, by the villain himself.
I'm not to blame. It is the gypsy girl, the witch who set this flame.
The Disney starlets get blamed too. The way that Disney controls the brand image of its kids is so intense, but it's not like they've got a great vetting process anyway. We all remember that Jake Paul was part of the Disney crew. But it's okay, because he's a boy, right? Doesn't matter. Looking at some of the Disney sweethearts, MTV decided to sit Britney down after her infamous VMA performance, which was amazing, by the way, to have the public give her feedback on what a bad role model she is.
Think about those 12-year-olds that listen to your music, and think about the 12-year-olds who saw you on the VMAs, and think what they're thinking. They probably are thinking that it's okay to dress like that, which it's not.
I'm not their parent, man.
And yes, I do have 2 Britney videos, by the way. And Christina often got raked through the coals. I always think of Ursula.
And I'm afraid I had to rake 'em across the coals.
Her interviews were often about her looks or her piercings. Like, just look at this David Letterman interview.
Now, can I talk about the piercings for a moment? Now,
See, it's always about the piercing. Done.
You're done with the piercing?
Yeah, I'm done with it. Well, why does that get applause? That's funny.
What a weird thing to compliment and applaud a woman removing her piercings. Nothing about her awards, her hard work, her artistry, her talent. No, it always came back straight to her looks. When she came up with her album Stripped, which I listened to oh so many times. I loved that album so much when I was growing up. It's highly underrated in my opinion. She released Dirty as the first single and said this.
Uplifting, I think, on a whole lyrically. I mean, Dirty being the first single is kind of a misrepresentation of what the rest of the album sounds like or portrays lyrically.
Then why the choice to release Dirty as the first single?
Dirty's my comeback song. It reflects also, another personal side of me. Calling it dirty also reflects not necessarily, people of course put a sexual connotation to it, especially with the video or whatever, but really it's about almost like a street term to me where it's like I'm not afraid to get a little unpretty or roughed up.
Parents were complaining about her appearing on TV in 2002, but it's the earlier stuff that she personally had issues with when she had to play that innocent but sexy sort of thing that they wanted Britney to fit into. They wanted all of these pop starlets to fit into. She talks about this in her interview with Paper Magazine earlier this month by Justin Moran. The success of Genie in a Bottle, people would talk to you about how provocative the song was, but then try to maintain your innocence in an uncomfortable way. It really was more so a reflection of everyone else at that time. How do you look back on it? Christina replies. It definitely was a time to hypersexualize a little girl playing innocent thing. That's why Dirty was so important to me. I hated that feeling like I had to play both sides of the coin in a way that I wasn't comfortable with, and in a way I felt was inauthentic. I'm not trying to be cutesy for nobody. I needed to rough this up, whether you like it or not. As I said, I was surrounded by a lot of older males. It was a different time. But it's definitely an environment to this day I don't like being around, the macho male gaze. I just can't do it. It's a really uncomfortable place for me to be. A lot of people can stomach that, but I'm just not that girl. So Dirty was your way of taking full ownership of your sexuality then. Thank you, yeah. And we can't possibly forget the girl that took a wrecking ball to Disney's image. You know Miley Cyrus, who at 20 came up with this infamous video. But the hate started so long before that. As girls age up, their bodies change and they get seen as sexual no matter what they do, because we live in a world that sexualizes girls whether they want it or not. Article from articles pouring out from 2009 calling her too sexy. The Parents Television Council deemed her video for Who Owns My Heart too racy. And her appearance at the MTV Europe Awards had people gasping because, oh my goodness, you can see her legs. You can see that she's wearing thigh-high stockings. How dare she? And we can't forget the infamous 2008 Vanity Fair shoot.
You wrote, "I'm not sorry. F you, hashtag 10 years ago."
Sure, some people thought that I did something wrong in their eyes, but I think it was really wrong of someone to put on top of someone that this is my shame and that I should be ashamed of myself.
Well, that's the New York Post.
That's not a nice thing to tell someone that they should be ashamed of themselves.
No, yeah, but that's...
Besides Donald Trump.
But did you apologize for doing that? I don't remember.
I think I did, but I'm sure someone told me too. This will probably get turned around too, but when this photo was taken, my little sister was here on set. She actually was sitting with Annie Leibovitz taking photos too, and there was nothing sexualized about this on set, and it was everyone else's poisonous thoughts and minds that end up turning this into something that it wasn't meant to be. So actually, I shouldn't be ashamed. They should be.
She was said to be a terrible role model and carried this guilt around with her for years. I was creating attention for myself because I was dividing myself from a character. And sure, people may go saying, well, Miley's not like that these days, like she's sober. Yes, that's because you know what people do? They change as they get older. I don't know what you were like when you were 19 or 20, but I'm basically polar opposite to how I used to be. Okay, well, maybe not polar opposite because I was never conservative. But, like my worldview, so much of how I am, I don't drink, I don't do all sorts of stuff now, which I was absolutely doing back then. We all go through different phases in life to find ourselves, different experiences, and you change over time. I've always said this, people can learn, change, and grow at literally any age, and I have to believe that, otherwise I'll lose all hope for humanity. But imagine being squished into this regimented, controlling, image-aware, innocent but sexualized girl, like all of these Disney child star girls were. I think rebelling when you're free is completely understandable. And it's just another reason for why I don't like super controlling households, but we're getting more into that when we get to my crunchy to alt-right pipeline video. Miley said in this 2023 Vogue interview by Giles Hattersley, "I carried some guilt and shame around myself for years because of how much controversy and upset I really caused. Now that I'm an adult, I realize how harshly I was judged. I was harshly judged as a child by adults, and now as an adult, I realize I would never harshly judge a child." And yes, she does view her 20-year-old self as being a child. And I think that we can all understand that when you're like 20 years old, you really are experimenting with things. You're really finding yourself and experiencing different limits. You're meant to be a big adult at this time, but you still really aren't quite there yet. So I also do agree with not holding people to too stringent a standard. However, she was being called out for the cultural appropriation, which she kept on continually doing annoyingly. I see that as being valid. But her exploring her sexuality and herself, it wasn't hurting anybody else. The question which should be asked here is, why is being hypersexual the way to freedom for so many girls? But as discussed in this video, I think it needs to be a Patreon exclusive video because I actually got demonetized for that one as well. And I'm not having that. I want to be able to actually have this conversation properly with you.
Straight laced, you gotta play it safe into the T. Madonna didn't get anywhere by playing it safe anyway, and she's one of the all-time greats at being brave enough to do her own thing.
Absolutely no regrets.
Women's sexuality is bad when they own it, but it's totally fine when they're being sexualized because we live under patriarchy. You wouldn't make it through one of my videos without me bringing this up now, would you? Like, do you remember the horror from conservative white men with undoubtedly miserable wives when the song WAP came out?
My first concern is that these women are describing a serious gynecological condition. This sounds like there's something that is going on here that is not biologically normal.
You really shouldn't be telling on yourself like this, my dude. This was 4 years ago. How dare they blast such vulgarity? But it's only vulgar when a woman expresses her wants, apparently, because men have been singing about what they want to do to women for so many years, what they want women to do to them. Plural, of course. It's a bit of a double standard, isn't it? However, these were two black women using their agency to say what they wanted. Now, there is still a lot to be said about the male gaze in all of this, but that is going down a separate video path, and we're not going to get straight to that today because we want to keep this short and sweet. It's crucially important to remember that black women have been sexualized against their will ever since they were enslaved, especially in the good old US of A, and I highly recommend everybody reads this book by Bell Hooks, Ain't I a Woman, because that went down so much history. Like, I'm not from the US, okay? I did not know about any of this history, genuinely, about the horrors that so many black women actually went through. And I like to think of myself as being like fairly well versed in history of like the US at least, because American exceptionalism absolutely exists. But yeah, really horrific stuff kept on happening. I will boil down and paraphrase some bits, but go read the whole book for the full context. But what was happening was black women and girls were being used as a way for men to let off their steam, shall we say. And so that meant that white women kind of got off the hook. And what was also happening was a lot of like Christianity evolution, and white women got seen as being like these chaste, pure, moral, delicate little things. But black women weren't seen as women, nor were black girls, and sadly a lot of terrible stuff happened to underage girls, and oh my goodness, it's a very dark read, but a very important one. But it's really important to note that these relationships, these arrangements, they were not consensual. It was more of an open secret, but white women absolutely allowed it because it's better for a white man to go sleeping with a black woman or a black girl, as opposed to cheating on her with a white woman because, well, that's actual cheating, but this isn't because black woman's obviously below you. Just, a lot of issues. Really, really good book. Obviously, like Bell Hooks, I think that you know that, but I would just recommend it again. But you don't get taught that sort of stuff in history class now, do ya? And if the authoritarian orange gets in again, you'll be learning even less than that. Reminder, please vote people in the USA, please. But this entire thought pattern of the adultification of black girls, the sexualization of black girls and black women, has absolutely continued to this very day. It falls into really bad stereotypes like black girls are fast, which is not true, and that only white girls are allowed to have girlhood. Again, That's not right, and I have made a whole video about this sort of stuff right here. And these stereotypes continue on into adulthood as well, so black women are seen as deviant. So a song like WAP coming from two black women is a bit more understandable, but oh my goodness, we've got white girls being sexual. A 25-year-old white girl is being super sexual on stage. The horror! She's meant to be chaste and innocent and pure. Black women get sexualized and seen as deviant, and white women get seen as a marker of purity, whether anyone wants to fit into these categories or not. So to have a woman, a short, petite woman no less, because people love to infantilize people based on their height, acting like this? How could you? How dare you? Who do you think you are? Kylie Minogue? I seriously get some Kylie Minogue vibes from Sabrina Carpenter. That could just be me, but 2000s, Kylie Minogue, I see it. And as the cherry on top, it's not exclusive to just younger women as well. This dude tried to sue Madonna this year when he attended her concert and said she was too late, too sexy, and too hot, where he complains he was forced to watch topless women on stage simulating sex acts. Madonna, who came up with this coffee table book in the 90s, which I can't even show on YouTube at all. Only Patreon viewers are seeing this right now. So you see why I can't show them on YouTube, right? If you want to talk about pop music pushing boundaries, Madonna is absolutely an icon in this area. And I've said it before, it literally is about controlling women's bodies. Remember how last year Dolly Parton joined the Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders and came out looking amazing, might I add, as I discussed in this video here. It doesn't matter what age you are, doesn't matter about your status or anything. As a woman, you're always going to get criticized. You're always going to get told that you're doing the wrong thing, unless you are adhering to like these incredibly tiny, narrow patriarchal standards. But then other people will be angry with you for something else too. I want to ask you, what's really happening when a woman is happily, securely herself? She's not hurting you directly, and she's not hurting other people for that matter either. My final thoughts. When people think of the word role model, they think of this Wikipedia example. A person whose behavior, example, or success serves as a model to be emulated by others, especially younger people. Okay, when you think pop star, do you think role model? And why is it girls' role models are always in the entertainment space? Meanwhile, boys' role models are scientists, they're in the army, they're performing all sorts of experiments, they're going into space. What messaging goes to boys about their bad role models in the music industry? Do men in the music industry get held to such high scrutiny when it comes to being a role model? Or were they never expected to be a role model to begin with? Because someone like P. Diddy shouldn't have been able to get away with all that he's allegedly been able to get away with. No one questions or cares what they do because what's the saying? Boys will be boys, am I right? Oh, unless a guy's being slightly feminine or enjoying wearing a dress or something, because then it's like masculinity is being destroyed and all that other nonsense. So often these pop stars say that I'm being myself, I'm not trying to be a role model, that's not the job I want. But to exist as a woman in this role is to live under scrutiny, being sexualized against your will and not being allowed to own your own sexuality. Sabrina is 25 years old. The music that she's made ever since she was out of the claws of Disney has been about adult themes because she's what? An adult. And one of my patrons said this when I said I wanted to make this video, and I'm just going to quote them quickly. I find it interesting how quickly the internet would say free Britney, but refuse to learn any lessons to prevent her retreatment from recurring in others. And it's true. If parents are lamenting that there's no teen-friendly concerts to take their children to, that teen-friendly content doesn't really exist, it's like kids content or there's adult content and there's not much in between, I would actually agree with you. I think there's a big gap in the market where teens are expected to be mini adults in a way, but also I would go saying that parents also expect their teens to be like mini adults too, with heaps of responsibilities, there's high work ethic, like all sorts of stuff. It's just that adults really don't like it when their teens are expressing like curiosity about certain things, just like you were doing as a teenager, just like I was doing as a teenager. It's always a bit more comfortable when you're looking down on that stuff and you're like, oh, but you're so young, but you were probably doing that stuff too. If you weren't curious or if you weren't pushing boundaries then that's okay. Everyone's got a different life, as I say all the time. Everyone has different lived experiences. But I really feel like this anger is misdirected. Don't get angry at Sabrina for being her cheeky self. She's the one in control now and she's making her own decisions, just like everyone should be able to make on their own too. And in my opinion, she is not even scratching the surface when it comes to public figures who are doing huge, genuine damage. And funnily enough, most of those are rich white men. The parents who are concerned about what Sabrina wears or does or sings or whatever, they're actually concerned about the hypersexualization of society, which has been so incredibly normalized for many years. Oh God, tinnitus. Oh. Push through, push through, push through. That's not Sabrina's fault. You can't go pointing a finger at her when it's been prevalent for decades. Anyway, what do you think? Since it's Sabrina, I think that we have to leave the kiss emoji, right? Because it's just too fitting. I was thinking of trying to draw like a little kiss tattoo on my shoulder, you know, using lip liner, but this isn't our place. Like, this is temporary accommodation, and this stuff is too fancy for me to risk getting a red lip liner on, okay? It's way too risky. I can't afford to replace this stuff. And do you get the 2000s Kylie Minogue vibes from Sabrina Carpenter too? Because I really do see similarities between them both. But again, I'm a millennial, so I grew up like watching this sort of stuff. So if you're Gen Z, you may not remember her, but honestly, banger songs, amazing songs from Kylie Minogue. If you haven't checked out her like extensive library, highly recommend you go do it. Anyway, I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your week. I will see you next time, and I'm gonna go lie in the dark and hopefully deal with this very painful tinnitus now. Bye. Oh, I need to thank my patrons. And a special thanks to all of my patrons as always, and especially a big thanks to my Trash Panda enablers, Alyssa Pisani, Birgit, Carrie Quake, Jam, Mila Gautier, Stella Sapiente, Tammy Poitres, Tim Long, Tonya Beignet. And I'll see you all next time. Bye! Okay, now I really am gonna go lie down. Oh my god.
I'm not a villain.
I think that was a very fair answer.